Hey, I had a brilliant idea. I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I read 7 books in 7 days?
Hey guys, we have to be super quiet because Xenia is reading. We cannot distract her.
I'm so tired.
How is the reading process going so far?
Usually I read at night, so now it's the afternoon and I'm so sleepy. I want to take a nap, but I only have 70 pages left, so that would be stupid, Noru. Also, I like the first part of the book much more than the part that I'm reading now.
Show us, like something of the book.
Friendship that is deeply real, like, I have that already, I don't need to read about it. Just kidding. Not kidding, I love my friends. So everything that's in here, it's kind of common sense, but I guess I still appreciate it.
You're so wise.
Stop it! Wait, let's see if there's anything coming that is more useful. Oh, yes. It's about work. I love reading about work. And then it's about grace. And then it says I should become the teacher.
Who's teacher?
Teacher Xenia.
Congrats, you got the job.
What are you reading?
I'm reading Pitch Anything.
Pitch me something. Let's see if it works.
Okay, first we have to set the frame.
Like denim
Yeah,
or picture frame?
picture frame.
Real pitch. Oh, you're so cute. You're so cute.
Alright, see you later.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Hi guys, look at our little girl reading. She's so intensely reading. No, not that girl. The other girl.
I read 7 books in 7 days. I calculated it's 1,700 pages. You may wonder, why did I do that? First of all, because I can. I'm a very fast reader. I would say I definitely don't read as much as I could. And second, and more importantly, I wanted to accomplish a challenge because this year hasn't been the easiest. And failure in particular is a big topic this year. Personal failures, but also other people failed me. And I thought that by challenging myself, I can prove to myself that I can do things and that I can accomplish whatever I set my mind to. And also hopefully get inspired along the journey. So it's like inspiration on steroids. How did I select these books? I wanted to have a diverse range of books. So we have self-help, biography, business, novel, psychotherapy, branding and finance. I did consider more novels, but I realized because I'm reading fast, I rather focus on any other type of book because I feel like a novel is nicer to enjoy slowly, like a cup of tea, you know? So my approach was that I stopped the time for the first 10 pages that I read. And usually it's always around 35 to 45 seconds. Like that's across all books, no matter the size of the letters or the size of the book, it took me always 35 to 45 seconds. So based on that, I calculated that every book takes me 2 to 3 hours because usually all these books have like 200 to 220 pages. The reason why I tell you this is to explain that 2 to 3 hours a day is really manageable. Let's see what my average screen time is on my phone. I mean, this week I guess it doesn't count, but usually it's around 6 hours. I try to be better, but like many others, I struggle with my screen time. But I really realized that the amount I spend on my phone is definitely better spent in books. And you know what? It was actually not that hard. I just needed to have a switch of mindset that I also read during the day. Because right now I always read before I go to bed. So I think this amount of books would have taken me several weeks or even months because I read fast, but I don't read a lot. And I'm actually really glad that I did this challenge because I've learned so much. I really practiced reading a lot during the day, which is amazing. And I got so inspired. And also I had a sense of pride because I proved to myself that I can do things, even if it's like a silly little challenge. Let's just start. So the first one, I started with a self-help book. And you know what? I'm a sucker for self-help books. I just love them. They feel like a really good hug or a warm blanket on a cold day. I remember whenever I went to a bookstore and there was the self-help section, I would literally go to another section that was like close to it, and I would eye the self-help section and pick a book and then grab it and then like really quickly walk out. And I'm really glad that I got over this, that I now own that I love self-help books. I think there's no shame in that, because everybody would be better off if people read more self-help books. I was drawn to this book because it was new. I think it just came out like now. Basically, it's about, who would have thought, build the life that you want. By the way, this is by Arthur C. Brooks with Oprah. It started off really well because I really loved the author's approach to happiness. Like, in order to be happy, you need to accept the times when you're not happy. So it's like two sides of the same coin. This is so much my philosophy because I believe so much that we need times of struggle, of hardships, in order to feel whole. I think this has a lot to do with wholeness. And people who are like always happy or pretend to be, like, I have zero trust in you if you pretend that everything is great in your life, because this is just not the human experience that we have. So I really loved his approach. I also loved how he explained everything. It all made so much sense, what I intuitively always thought or read in other self-help books. It also talks about metacognition, which is an important part in, you know, awareness and self-awareness, which is basically recognizing your feelings and not judging them. I mean, it's like the 101 of awareness, but I think the way the author wrote about it, it just resonated so deeply with me. So I was like, wow, we're off to a good start. And then the second part was about family, friends, work, and faith. And to be honest, I think they should have skipped the second part, because the second part was so kind of generic and I kind of rushed through it because I didn't really enjoy it. It didn't provide as much value as the first part. Would I recommend this book? Maybe, if you are not very familiar with the topic of self-help. And again, I really loved the first part, but I would argue there are better books out there about emotions, self-awareness. It was a good start for the challenge, but it didn't blow my mind. The second book I read on my Kindle, and you know what, it really annoyed me because I think for YouTube it's really nice to have physical books that I can show you. So in this case, I swear it bothered me so much that I even considered reading an 8th book just to have a physical copy. I wanna show you the book, even if it's here. Okay, so this is the book that I read, Blowing My Way to the Top by Jen Atkin. The reason I chose this book is because I wanted to get inspired by a female entrepreneur. And I might be biased here because I do know Jen Atkin from like many years ago. I've always loved her. She is such a genuine and kind and professional and just like a lovely person. She and her husband, they're like the loveliest people. This book is basically how she made her way in LA in a very tough and competitive industry and became one of the most successful and most famous celebrity hairstylists. You know what? I really enjoyed reading about her journey. But what I really loved is her emphasis on protecting the privacy of her clients. She has the top clients of this world. And I think you just hear so much. And she really emphasized how important it is not to gossip. And yes, it may seem kind of common sense when you read about it, but I know from experience, because I'm on the other side. I'm the client who sits in these hairdressers' chairs when I get my hair and makeup done, and I know from my personal experience that they just hear and see things that are really private. You know, there's times where you get hair and makeup done every day, there's a lot of phone work, there's sometimes drama. I actually remember last Fashion Week I had a situation, and I also feel like hairstylists have a very like psychological sense, like they're really good with people, and my hair artist could sense that something was off, and I could feel how he like didn't want to go too deep into what's going on, but then I ended up just offloading. He was so kind and understanding, and it's really something that obviously didn't apply to him at all. But then after, I was like, oh my god, I just told him something like private, something that really upset me. I think that's just general in life. If you are extremely successful, you know when to shut your mouth. And I loved that part. I also loved her work ethic. I loved how she hustled, because I also come from that generation where I had to go through dirt. It just took so many years to get to where I am today, and I really appreciated how she was very honest about, you know, putting your ego aside, doing the things you have to do, and then hence making your way up to the top. I loved her take on the work ethic. I loved how she emphasized how to kind of create lucky opportunities for yourself by putting yourself out there. I kind of was missing more details about the struggle in building Y, which is her brand. I'm sure you might know it. It's amazing. But I know that every entrepreneur deals with crazy struggles. And I wanted to read more about that, and I feel like that was only touched on like a superficial level. If I think about it and I would put in all the struggles I've had with my brand attire, that could fill a book in itself. So maybe she didn't have the capacity, I don't know. But I love it, I love her. I love reading books by inspiring, strong women. And I feel like you can really tell that she has goodness in her, and I really love that. The next book was Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Guys, I love Simon so much. Whatever he says, I think he is one of the greatest thought leaders of our generation. I love him. I'm obsessed with his thoughts and his mind. You know, I was running earlier and I was thinking, was there a time when I didn't agree with something he said? And I genuinely cannot think of a time where I wouldn't agree with something he said, and I'm really critical. So I love his approach to business. I was really excited about this book, but I have to say, like, the very beginning of this book really annoyed me, because this is a book written by a man, duh, for men. So there was a lot of examples about war, more examples about war, only male examples. And I think it took him like 100 pages to mention the first woman in this book. And overall, I think he mentioned woman like 3 times and was very superficially touched. But then this book got so good that I think I will forgive you, Simon, for neglecting female voices. I actually learned so much. So basically the main idea of this book is that we think in finite terms. Finite? Sorry if I pronounce. Finite? Thanks, Jürgen. I didn't know you were listening. I'm not. We have a finite mindset. Speaking of, we have goals and we think once we reach them, we have happiness or we've made it. And he wants to switch the mindset to really think long term. Like this game, it's a game that you cannot win because there's no end to it. It's infinite. Infinite or infinite? Infinite. Infinite. I feel like I forgot how to English, I'm sorry. It's so interesting because if you would ask me, I would argue I am a very long-term thinker. I always say slow and steady wins the race, but seeing the examples he put in his book, I realized I do have a finite mindset in quite a lot of things, and that was really eye-opening. I actually learned a lot about capitalism, and then like the last few chapters got so good. Like the chapter about ethical fading, which is when you start to neglecting the values you put in the very beginning of starting a business, because I see it all the time and I've always wondered, how does it happen? Like it's so interesting from a scientific perspective. The chapter about a worthy rival was so interesting because I also believe that competition can be healthy, and with a good and healthy competition, everybody's better off. And then existential flexibility, which talks about kind of making a major shift. And I think overall he had such good ideas. When I finished this book, I was just like, wow, he really changed my mindset. And you know, when I read, I feel like, okay, this sounds crazy, but I feel like if the book is good, somebody is like knitting in my head, like when I read, new neural connections in my head. And that's why I think really good books can be so powerful. And this is a book that really expanded my horizon, and I'm very grateful for that, even though he neglected female power. I love this book so much that whoever I will hire in the future who has a high position in my company has to read this book. That's that. This is the next book, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and it's by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I hope I pronounced it right. It's the only novel I decided to read. It's quite short. I wasn't sure if it's going to be a really good novel. So the reason why I picked this book is because I've seen it everywhere. Like every single bookstore I went to, I saw it. Like in Germany, in LA, in New York, like everywhere. So I have to say, the marketing for this book has been done extremely well because first of all, the title is so good. Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Ooh, you're immediately intrigued. I mean, I was immediately intrigued. And I love the cover art. I am easily impressed. If I see a cover art that I like, I buy the book. I love like the branding of this book already puts you in such a like cozy mood. But also I was a bit skeptical because I never actually heard somebody recommending this book. So I started reading it, and one thing about me, I'm terrible with names. I'm working on it, but I am really bad with names. And this book had a lot of names and it was very confusing for me. I kind of figured it out, but it was like confusing to get into the book. And it's basically 4 stories about a coffee shop that enables time travel to the past and to the future. And the idea is like, what would you say if you had the chance to say something that was left unsaid? I like where the author was going. I like the idea. I did not love the writing style. Maybe because it's also translated and something gets lost in translation. I love the idea more than I love the writing. It is quite repetitive, but it's also really heartwarming and really cute. And some stories will just make you bawl your eyes out. Like the last story in particular, I can't even talk about it. It was so sad. It was so sad. But like in a good way. So there's a term, it's called anticipatory grief. And I feel like this book really puts you in this mood of anticipatory grief. Because time is such a strange concept, especially like past and future. And I don't know, this book, oh my god, also the second story was so sad. Anyway, I don't know if I would recommend this book. I think kind of yes and kind of no. It depends what you like to read. But if you are into coffee shops that can make you travel in time, then you should read it. On to the next one. I hope you're not tired yet. Okay, the next one is Quarter Life by Satya Doyle Biok. Again, I hope I pronounce it right. I'm sorry if I don't. This book is about the search for self in early adulthood, which, you know, when I saw this book on the shelf, first of all, I love the cover art. It's so colorful. And if you look at like everything I have, I am quite neutral, so it's kind of out of character for me to like something that's so bright. But I also think it's not. Like, I love neutral things, I love very colorful things, and this cover drew me in. This book is for everybody who's in this kind of awkward stage between youth and like adult. And even though I'm in the beginning of my 30s, it really spoke to me because I thought about this a lot, or I think about this a lot. I'm like in this age where I do not have a family yet and I don't have these adulty things yet, but also I'm not in my 20s anymore. I cannot be reckless anymore, you know what I mean? When I saw this book, I was like, wow, there's a term for that, quarter life. Like, that's brilliant, because this book spoke so much to me. When I started reading this book, I almost quit because it was not very captivating in the beginning. Something that I noticed when I read, a lot of times the first third of a book is usually quite weak, and then it gets really, really good in the middle, but mostly it's like the last third that gets so good. Like, as if it takes the authors some time to like get into it, or they spare the best information for the people who actually stick through the end. So in the beginning it was a lot of quotes, like scientific quotes. It almost read a bit like a research paper, and I did not enjoy that. But then once she introduced the 4 characters, so she's a psychotherapist and she talked about 4 of her clients. Once she brought them into the game, it got so good. And you know what? I think she did an incredible job in bringing life to these characters. I actually don't even know if that's fictional or not. Well, I guess life inspires art. But basically the main ideas, there are 2 main types. And one is the meaning type. So it's people who put meaning in what they look for and what they do above anything else. So these are the types that are a bit more chaotic, a bit more artistic. They're less rooted in stability. And the other type is the stability type that puts stability above everything else. So it's more like the lawyers, the super well organized. And when I started reading it, I was like, oh my God, I am a meaning type. Like, I'm all about meaning. And then I read about stability types and I was like, oh my God, I am a stability type. I know what you're thinking. You're like, this doesn't make sense. But the main idea of this book is that we have both types in us. And what I realized by reading this book is that I am a meaning type. I am quite chaotic. I have this creative nature to me. But I feel like, especially lately, I've been trying so hard to become the stability type by doing things perfectly, by being perfectly organized. And by this, I killed a part of my meaning type. And you reach like happiness when you have both parts in yourself nourished. So when you're leaning into too much of one direction, you will feel like something is missing in your life. And I feel like I neglected my meaning side in the last, I don't know, months or years. Like, I was so about being proper, being rigid, doing things perfectly. Now I give myself permission to lean more into my meaning side and be more chaotic and be more creative. I think I do a very bad job in summing this up, but this book I really love. If you feel anything like what I just described, I highly recommend you to read it. I loved it. This was very easy to read in one day. I mean, after I got over the first chapter, you know. Whoa, only 2 more books. Guys, this book, there's only one book I recommend to everybody, like a must read for everybody, and it's called Factfulness. And I'm adding this to the must read, like must, non-negotiable list. So number 1 is Factfulness, number 2 is Psychology of Money. This is one of the best books I've ever read. The value this book provides is immeasurable. Just wow. I always felt like I was quite knowledgeable about finance. You know, my focus in my business administration degree was finance. I always had a good feeling or good hand for my personal finances. And I never understood why sometimes on the business side, I made investments that were not good, and I felt really stupid about it. And this book explained it all, because maybe 10% knowledge is at play and 90% is psychology. And this book just blew my mind. I was reading it and I put it down and I was like, I had to like digest what I just read. It's so good. I literally forced my boyfriend to read it. I got this book quite a while ago, I think a few years ago, but I never wanted to read it because I don't know, I thought it will be a complicated book. And like, I hate when I don't like read fast through a book, but it was actually such an easy read. Like, it's so easy. Oh my God, the stuff that I learned from this book, like, it's always written in stories, and the stories he's telling, they're so good and so interesting. Honestly, you have to read this book, period. Like, no matter in what situation you are in your life, whether you like care that much about finances, I mean, everybody cares about finances, I hope. It's a must read. It's, wow. Morgan Housel, you changed my life. And I got very excited because I saw that he just dropped a new book. I'm very excited about that. Okay. I can't believe it's, guys, it's literally 10:30 on a Sunday. I was very committed to filming this video before the week ends. And last but not least, I read Obsessed by Emily Hayward. Emily is the founder of Red Antler. I don't know if you know, it's a branding agency. It's one of the best in the world. They launched Casper, the famous mattresses. They launched Allbirds. They actually did a lot of major brands. I was so excited to read this book. I was like, wow, I cannot believe my luck that this founder of this iconic branding agency wrote a book about her like approach to branding. Also, the funny thing about branding is I'm so obsessed with like my personal branding. I focus so much on my personal branding that I would say like in content creation, it's one of the main reasons why I am successful, because I figured it out for myself. But the really strange thing, and it's similar with like finances, it's like I'm good on a personal level and then it's really hard for me to apply to the business. So for example, with a tire, I feel like the last years I was so focused on the product, like I wanted to perfect that product, that I never really took any care of marketing or branding. Now I'm like, oh my God, how did this happen? And for some reason, it's really hard for me to apply things that I'm really good at, like for me, for myself, to the brand. I don't know why that is. Anyway, that's the reason why I was really excited about a branding book. So I think my mistake was I had very high expectations. I would say they were too high because I love what she was like writing about, but I didn't feel like it gave value. So this was published in 2020. So I assume she wrote it in 2019. 2019 or even 2020 were such different times than we're in right now. So a lot of the examples that she gave felt really outdated. And a lot of the companies, like the majority of the companies she was talking about, are actually struggling because the whole environment has changed so much. A lot of the things that applied like 5 years ago or like in the 2010s until 2020, it just simply doesn't apply anymore. So it felt outdated. I'm sorry to say, I think this is a great book when you read it in 2020. There was one chapter that I really loved, and it's about pension in a brand. I thought that provided value, but overall, I'm sorry, my expectations were just too high. And I was quite disappointed, but I also think there are better branding books out there. Like, for example, I think The Infinite Game and The Psychology of Money really changed my brain. And I wouldn't say the same about this. So I'm really sorry, I actually don't like giving negative feedback. But also, like, if you're very new to branding, I think it's a good book, and I like the way she wrote. It's a lot of storytelling, obviously, and she had humor in there, which I also enjoyed. But yeah, I just think it didn't provide as much value as I was hoping it would do. So yeah, if you know any good branding books, drop them in the comments. I'm so happy that I did this, but I'm also kind of happy it's over. I think the perfect speed for me to do something like this is one book every 2 days. Maybe that's for next time. 12 books in 24 days. Just kidding. I'm actually so happy that I don't have the pressure of reading anymore. So yeah, I don't even know what I'm gonna read next. That's exciting. Actually, you can drop book recommendations in the comments. which is nice because then everybody has something out of it. And I think, guys, we are doing Vlogmas. I'm very positive, which is insane because when I post this video, it's one day before Vlogmas starts. So you're gonna get spammed with me and Jürgen and Rue, and I hope you're gonna enjoy it. I love you. Bye-bye.